Behold, the wait is finally over. Us in the US and other parts of the world that aren't Japan finally get to have the Deluxe Groove to complete our Classics team of Protectobots and throw off the scale of everybody in the line. But who cares? It's a motorcycle! Let's get this started because there's a lot to get through on Combiner War molds, so we need to begin. As you can see, of course, he is a police standard motorcycle. Not standard because, number one, he's huge, and number two, he's extremely bulky and heavy as a motorcycle. I think this is another reason Hasbro didn't want to do one originally. He is quite bulky. In order to be like the right size for a Combiner War limb, he definitely needed some bulking up. You can see here I've got all of his weapons attached in their optional positions. You can have them mounted here on the sides of the wheel, with little pegs on the sides, and they come off like so. I like how they kind of have this little bit of translucent red. You can even see the molding on the inside actually does look like the siren. That's actually kind of cool. And then we can take this off and get a much more clean look at the motorcycle form itself. It's not a bad design. Like it's pretty blocky and basic, but I tend to like it. It looks heavy duty, as I keep saying, and I think that fits in with what the Combiner War Protectobots are going for. It's not flawless. In obvious robot mode arms are obvious. I do like that they came up with like an engineering scheme to make it look like a big engine block. Now they did use a little bit of silver paint in here to kind of include more of that and make it look a little bit more solid, but it's lacking in a few spots where it would have really made the illusion work. You got silver, 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 white, 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 but I guess that's about as good as you can do. At least I assume it is, because they didn't do any more. But still, it's something, and I do commend it. It's at least a different bit of engineering, and I like the molding in there. You get some exhaust pipes going up the front as well. Speaking of molding, we have all the spokes that are done very nicely throughout both sides. The headlights done behind a translucent plastic windshield. Like the look of that, very cool. Speaking of translucent windshield, blue here on the top rather than the clear in the front, and rather than the red on the sides. There's a lot of different plastic hues going on here. And again, molded detail on the inside, which is very cool. Looking around some of the rest, you have the handlebars as well as the dash and the indicators. What looks like a gas cap, but is actually the port for holding the weapons. You can also kind of pass off some of the molding as vehicle parts. If you want to pretend like that's the gas can or the oil can, that's up to you. And then we have police tampoed on the back with some tail lights on the rear, and then you have the rear wheel, which does not spin as freely because of the engineering. It's actually really finicky to get into this position. It takes a little bit of practice to figure out how to do. So yeah, it's not a bad attempt at a motorcycle, but it is definitely just kind of a scrunched up robot, and you can kind of tell that sometimes. So we can get him into other modes from here. I'll go ahead and pull up the kickstand, which I like. There's a kickstand here because it would have been easy to just prop him up with the guns. We're going to take him through the combiner modes first because that's the easy part. I'm going to hinge these arms down, which is quite stiff. And we're going to... hang on. There we go. We're going to hinge them downward, and you're going to find little peg slots right there on the sides of his arm to peg him just like that. And we're going to go ahead and do that to the other side as well. Make sure... That's what was giving me trouble. It's a very tight fit to slot that in that section. Those pegged to the side, we can fold all this down. All this can open up in order to fold out the big combination block. Fold that down. Make sure this is all connected back up. And with that done, we can connect onto the foot and have our leg for Defensor. It's a little bit thin compared to some of the others, you know, especially if you're looking at like First Aid or Rook, but it kind of balances out with Blades too. So this is kind of works as one of the thinner limbs. I do like that they kept the arms, you know, they let the arms kind of bulk it out a little bit, so it didn't seem too narrow or too just too flimsy as a leg for such a big beast of a robot that Defensor is. That said, he is rather on the scrawny side, so maybe an arm Maybe an arm would be the preferred positioning. They want you to do this to the arms and kind of fold them up to the back, which I never like doing, but hey, we're going to do it here because they want you to. From here, we're going to open this up, and this is where you're going to start seeing some familiar engineering because, well, this part pegs in quite tightly. You can see these hinges on these long struts as well as these socket points here at the knees is very reminiscent to aerial bot engineering. And yeah, they're pretty much taken wholesale. So is what you're supposed to do with the arms, come to think of it. But yeah, without taking those apart, and we can kind of wiggle these tires apart. It's a little bit hard to get them back together, but we can do that, just to shortcut the arm mode a little bit. Peg those back in, rotate things out to the front. We'll make him a right arm just for the sake of sakes. And then flip this out. Connect on, and there we have what he looks like as an arm, which does not look too bad at all. Now, I kind of like Defensor as this big, heavy, bulky bot, but between him and Blades as the arms, you can thin him out quite a bit and get something a little bit closer to some of the other combiners in engineering. I actually kind of like that, as it does give you a little bit of visual preference with the Protectobots rather than just, well, he's all bulky all the time, which is kind of how he is now. I do like that he kind of balances out with Blades as being a more svelte member of the team. So yeah, as I might as well show you as the arm. Yeah, he's got the typical range of articulation here. Wrist and the thumbs all work and all of that, and the fingers kind of move in and out. He does have the elbow as well as the bicep, which is actually his waist joint, and a little bit more if you need it. If you want to like rotate it this way around, you actually get a double jointed elbow, but that looks kind of terrible. So we stick to this. And yeah, the universal shoulder joint is always a really nice thing too. So let's get him into robot mode, which is just a small little step from here. We're going to rotate the legs back this way, pop the legs open, which is a very tight thing to peg in together when you're transforming into vehicle mode. Let's get the arms swung back around like so. Get them back out, and boom. Oh, I was going for epic head reveal, and I forgot. It's like, hey, oh, all right. No epic head reveal today. Behold, we have our Deluxe Groove, long awaited, long anticipated, and now he stands. Is he everything you hoped he would be? I hope so. Yeah, it is another Protectobot, very much white and black, and a little bit of color to distinguish him, and we'll get into that in a bit. First off, close-up of the head, and oh my god, green eyes. He is, It's a little bit creepy. I'm not going to lie, the kind of eerie green, but it's done correctly. As you can probably tell, the back of his head is all clear plastic, and while that doesn't make me feel good about the ball joint on his neck, it does mean those eyes are painted, and they have like a pearl paint job, which is very thin and translucent, which means he light pipes extremely well. He doesn't have that dead-eyed look thing that you have with most figures who don't have halogen bulbs shining into the back of their skull 24/7. So yeah, with this guy in robot mode, you can see he's fairly basic, which is what you'd probably expect. He does not have a whole lot to work with out of his vehicle mode, but he does stand on his own in some specific parts here and there. You can see his torso has been done up in kind of a bronzish color. It's kind of like a pale brown with a little bit of metallic sheen. It's definitely a strange color, and it's kind of interesting that it does not match his face. Like they went with yellow and dark yellow for some reason. But it does make him look distinct from the other Protectobots who are very much, white and red and black in that kind of color scheme. Also notable, all the silver on the arms comes together to form pretty much a pretty solid-looking set of guns on this guy, as well as some silver on the thighs as well. Brings the color scheme together. Not as much black as some of the other Protectobots. We have it here on the legs and then nothing really in the body until we get to the head. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It does keep his color scheme nice and bright, which, hey, he's supposed to protect people. You would think that that would be a good thing, to be like not any kind of like dark or morbid in color scheme. But hey, it works. He does have this big thing hanging off the back end of him. Not a whole lot you can do about that, really. So it does not, hey, it's better than the G1. Can we say that? So yeah, he is a little bit plain in robot mode. I do like the engine molding, being the arm detail, but beyond that, he does kind of have a standard Combiner War style look to him. Not a whole lot going on. Let me get his weapons out again, because his weapons are cool. You do have this paint done up in a, get out of the way so I can focus. They are painted up in this metallic gunmetal gray, which is a very nice color on a Transformer weapon. And you can see it's been molded in clear and then painted over, and that would probably mean this is painted as well, rather than being a separate piece, which is all really cool. It might be a separate piece. I'm trying to look through there. No, it's not. No, it's another piece. Okay, so they kind of painted it over. It's very intricately painted for such a small accessory. It's just weird. Like, there's some parts on this guy, like between like how painted the weapons are, the fact that he's got like tail lights and all this painted on, as well as all this silver on his arms. He's got quite a bit of paint on him, all things considered. I think that kind of like helps to justify the price tag he's going for. This guy was like $25 at BBTS as a retail release. Kind of rough, you know, and it's more than what the exclusives went for last May. But hey, it does give you a little bit more reason to pay out for him. So he does look quite good with the weapons, so I'm happy about that. Also, his weapons also have actual holes on the sides, so if we really want, we can also peg him up this way and double up his weapons on this side, which means he can also use his hand-foot gun in his other hand and just be the most heavily armed groove of all time. And if that's what you want, that's what you can have too. Perfectly fine. If you want your rescuer to have bajillions of guns, he can have that. Somewhere Michael Bay is pleased. Let me get him out of his hands so I can go ahead and give you the articulation rundown. We have a ball-jointed neck. Does not go up and down too much, but does have good range all the way around. We do have ball-jointed shoulders on that extra hinge if you just so happen to need it. It's detented, but it's useful. Bicep rotation, as well as 90 degrees of detented elbows. Waist rotation with a good hip ball joint. Kind of gets restricted when you're rotating it around, but in its default position, there's a nice channel for it to go in, and that gives you a lot of range. The thigh has a swivel all the way around. The knee joint, 90 degrees. Slight slant to the foot to allow for balancing in a more natural position, but otherwise than that, no ankle tilt or foot articulation of any kind. This does lead him to be quite the posable little sucker, and that is something that's pretty common these days. In the Combiner Wars, not a whole lot of bricks in that toy line, which is always a good thing. That, my friends, is Combiner Wars Deluxe Groove. Now, the big thing, is he worth paying out? Because this guy was kind of expensive as a retail price. Oh boy, is he expensive on the aftermarket. Yes and no. If you really need your Protectobots to be all G1 all the time and have like a completely accurate, lineup of members, then yeah, you need to get your own groove. That said, a lot of collectors probably already got the Unite Warriors version for the more accurate paint jobs and color schemes. So, that's probably already taken care of on that side. For this guy, he does give you some variety in the fact that he's a very different vehicle from the rest of the team. But keep in mind, he does share a lot of that aerial bot engineering. The legs transform very much the same, and even the combined modes, they feel kind of similar. So this is not the saving grace of the Combiner War line that I think a lot of people were looking forward to. He does provide some variety, but not in the most meaningful of places. Like, I would prefer new engineering and new level of transformation rather than just kind of borrowed from here and there. So while he is visually very different, he's gonna feel fairly much the same.